Hi, welcome to Comic Talk. I'm Joshua.
I'm Drew.
This week, we're going to talk about Seven to Eternity, Volume 1. This is The God of Whispers. This is Rick Remender and Jeremy Apina. Oh, and Matt Hollingsworth on coloring.
So did you read 6 to Eternity?
No, I started at 4.
Yeah.
I read
5 was
5,
really good. Yeah.
and then I skipped 6.
Yeah.
Went right to 7,
Mm-hmm.
because 6 is the number of the beast. And I'm not down with that clown.
Yeah.
So this is
So you're probably going to skip 13 to Eternity as well.
maybe.
Okay.
This is this is by Rick Remender, Jeremy Apina, who he did Uncanny X-Force with, which I think we should get to that one eventually.
Okay.
And also Matt Hollingsworth, one of our favorite colorists, was on this for coloring.
You color as well.
And so, like, that combination, as well as not too long ago we read The Kents, and we realized that, hey, Western-themed stuff we kind of like, or at least when it's good.
It can be good, yeah.
So this is like a sci-fi Western, and I'm a bit of a sucker for sci-fi Westerns, so I thought, yeah, let's do that one. Rick Remender, cool people, see what we think. So what is this about?
There's this... would you call them, like, mutants? Or, like...
Maybe?
Yeah. Anyway, there's some people that have, like, special powers and shit. And one of them gets the power to, like, see things through other people's eyes and stuff. And he becomes, like, the king, I guess, for lack of a better term. And shit happens. He's not a good dude, you know, so...
Right. And then our protagonist basically is the son of the outcast. And,
yeah, the cursed family who's not about that life.
Right. They've said no all this time. They don't want to, buy in, and it comes to a head, and that's where this comes from.
Mm-hmm. What was your experience like reading this?
Man, I went so up and down with this one.
Yeah, same.
To be honest.
Same.
It's pretty, I don't know if the right word is high concept, but there's a lot of, I think in like the character design is what I'm getting at. Like the character design is really all over the place and really bizarre. And that was the first thing for me that was off-putting. Like, just right away, there was just so much weird,
and
unexplainably strange premises, and it's not even like the story throughout is pretty straight fucking forward.
Yeah.
Right? But really all the strangeness in this is the characters and like their abilities and how they
and the weird
interact.
Animals in their world and all this other shit.
It starts off as overwhelming.
It's very heavy in the beginning, and yeah, it was like super off-putting for me because like that's usually a mark of bad sci-fi, is like when they just start into this fucking fantasy talk about like whatevers, and it's like I'm sure that you had like
anything.
Right, yeah. So like the whole first issue, I was like between that and then like the vernacular that they try to use, like the quasi southern kind of thing, I was kind of like, fuck this.
Me too.
You know.
Yeah, the first issue is fucking rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really neat, but it's just it's like a million ideas that have some sort of relevance somewhere, but he just like fucking throws you into it hard and just, here you go, here's all of it on a plate at once.
Yeah.
It's like a buffet that you're forced to have a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
You know?
And I can understand like, not wanting to be like outwardly expository and stuff like that, but you can still regulate the size of the bites that you're insisting that people take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole first issue was hard.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't give you an inch. You have to work your way through it.
They're talking about these fucking nails that he salvaged from this barn. It's like, why is he saving nails? Like,
right.
are you trying to build another barn?
Right.
You know?
Everything in the first issue feels like a setup for something else, and there's no payoff at all in the first issue. So I agree. I had a really rough time on the way in. Did it get better for you?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt better about it as I went.
I enjoyed, I mean, the story is like very straightforward, but at one point they, what you think is going to be the larger story, sort of half to 75% of the way wraps up a lot sooner than you expect it to.
Right.
And then the real story becomes this like other part of that. And I always enjoy that. I mean, that's something that always makes me think of The Simpsons, because they always do that. They'll start off and the episode will be about one thing, and then like within the first like 10 or 15 minutes they're doing something like completely fucking different that may or may not be related. And yeah, I enjoy that.
Right, I agree. It was interesting, especially from the perspective of like reading a trade, right? Because so often with a trade, with some new Image series especially, is particularly bad about this. You get to the end and you got
Nothing.
almost nothing out of it. Like you have a setup, a reason why you're supposed to read the next one, and that's basically all you're getting. Whereas this really, you get pretty much an entire full strong story arc out of it in like 3 or 4 issues. That I agree. Well, I thought after like the second issue or so that I knew, okay, I get the general idea of like who the protagonists are, who the antagonist is, what the power struggle is going to be in this series. And it really does, we probably shouldn't be too specific, but moving forward, spoilers probably just to be safe, right? It really does end up where, like the Mud King isn't your real antagonist, really. It's there's like this whole other thing that's going to happen that I was curious, like, why is this called Seven to Eternity? Like, what's the seven? Who are these? Like, most of these people were in there, but they didn't seem like a group. They were just people. But it's almost like a prologue, right? Like, this is almost a prologue to some other, like, sprawling spaghetti western sort of thing that's going to happen now.
Right, yeah.
And this first one is almost just a quick, like, bam, here's a big, exciting story with a explosive punching and blowing up kind of resolution, So, I mean, on the takeaway with the story here, how did you feel about like the different aspects here? What do you think was the strong point of this?
That's a good question. And I'm not so like taken by it that I necessarily think that there is one, I mean, there's not something that stands out that says I have to like keep reading this because of this. But I think probably the inner monologue of like the protagonist, so to speak, is probably one of the stronger points.
Right.
You really start to, I mean, it doesn't only serve to sort of make you feel for the guy or whatever. It's also sort of expository of the antagonist in a way, and just the whole like mystique around this thing, which they're trying to like maintain, and I think they do a good job of that. So.
I think so too. I would agree where really his use of like narration and exposition in the narration a lot could be learned by a lot of other guys doing sort of out there fare, or a lot of the superhero stuff could really do with some better things more like this in terms of how they tell the stories. It has this really good mix of like building characters through like this narrative, but also, like you say, driving the whole thing forward. Like I never felt like I was standing still through this. Like it really is one of those a freight train out of control kind of stories. It just barrels forward. A lot happens that I didn't expect to happen so fast, and most of it is served through the narration from the characters. Yeah. How about artistically? Did you like what Opina and Hollingsworth had going on here?
It was pretty interesting, you know. I mean, it has a distinctly kind of fantasy feel to it. Maybe slightly better than most.
Yeah, it was an interesting mix, like what they have going on. There's a lot of, like I said, really crazy, wild characters and insane-looking things, but it's got that signature Hollingsworth coloring that's just...
Yeah, see, that's what I feel is a strong point, just like the palettes he chose for certain elements and stuff.
Yeah, it's really out of control, like what he does with a lot of the stuff. It, from page to page, the entire color palette goes 180, to just do insane things. I think that's definitely one of the stronger points. But Opina's art is pretty cool in here, considering what they're working with. I think a lot of these ideas, probably a lot of the notes that they were getting from Reminder were pretty fucking out there. You know what I mean? It's a purple guy with an extra eye and a dude who picks up other people's severed body parts and replaces his with them. And
he's a dinosaur with a metal mouth.
Yeah, metal mouth dinosaur. Like it's a really sort of bizarre, goofy stuff. And for the most part, it works. Or what about the fucking flying skeleton guy who plays a flute?
Yeah.
Right? With the fucking evil flautist. It's just really strange choices. But almost all of them end up on the page working pretty good. There's nothing revolutionary in terms of like arrangement, paneling, anything like that. It's all pretty, milk toast kind of stuff. I did notice that there's a lot of the 9-panel usage here. Maybe not all of it, but a whole lot of it uses, pretty standard old school grid style formats. It works pretty good for this. It's kind of a weird mix of like Opina's callback. It reminds me in some ways of like Omega Men in the art side, where, it's very fantastical and a lot of bright color, but it's also sort of gritty and got that Watchmen style of paneling,
Standard in certain aspects and really far out in others.
Yeah, which is unique looking, but maybe, I don't know, it feels sometimes too safe and sometimes a little too busy and hard to follow.
As you were thumbing through this, I forgot about this. These little pages of the journal and stuff, I thought were... like an interesting choice. I mean, there was a lot of like correspondence and stuff when like the Kents when we read that, and I really thought that did a lot to age the story or to aid the story. But like these journal pages, I don't really feel like it served the purpose that they could have.
Right, and it's also a little bit of a lazy way to do it. Whereas in the Kents we saw the same thing, but it was over the top of like actual art and paneling, right? So we were getting like one thing happening. And they were using that same opportunity to set up visually the issue with the narration of telling, what was being read, and they didn't always match.
Right.
Which was something that we felt was really strong, whereas I think was a lost opportunity here. Because this moves so fast.
And this is just used as a device to sort of move it faster in certain aspects.
And you get it all bunched up right here, so you either have to sit and just slowly read through it and have nothing to look at, and then boom, 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 this fast-paced thing.
Yeah.
Or you skip it completely because you're like, whatever, which I can see a lot of people doing. I didn't. I read it, but...
Yeah, I thought about skipping it, and then I was paranoid that I would miss something.
Important.
But the fact that I wanted to skip it, says something. And I think maybe just the fact that the whole... I mean, we were so, like, sour on the first issue, and the first issue starts out with, 2 pages of this journal entry or whatever, so... Yeah, when you see it again, you're just like, oh, here we go.
Right, exactly. And, I mean, I just, every time I got to one of those, I just read it and was imagining, like, how much better it would be with some sort of setup for what the issue was going to be about, where I didn't have to be reading dialogue. I could be reading this other thing that draws me into the story slowly,
Sure.
And it would have sort of slowly pulled you in and into the world, and then you could hear, now the story begins.
Yeah.
But instead, they went with this lazy, hard transition, which I thought brought the whole thing down. You're right. Well, other than that, I think about the only thing we should talk about now is, how strongly would you recommend this and to who?
To a sci-fi fan, maybe. Probably not like the Western fans that I could think of, because again, just with all of the whole plate of fantastical shit, I think they would get turned off pretty quick. Mm-hmm. There's probably a lot of sci-fi stuff I would recommend before this, though.
I would too.
It's kind of middling.
Yeah, I would probably stick with the Reminder fans from Marvel, from the work he's done there with the Secret Wars and that whole build-up. It has similar flair to a lot of that. It's the same writer. Or, I might say people who really were strong or hard into Omega Men. Mm-hmm. And
I can see that.
Want something else with the same kind of zip to it, right? It's kind of a similar gig where it's a lot of fantastical elements, but political intrigue happening, infighting, some violence. I think it checks a lot of the same boxes. It's going to depend on what you got out of Omega Men, but I can definitely see a lot of crossover and interest there.
Yeah, I could see that. Maybe people who are interested in reading things that are vaguely religious, would be another one. I mean, there's a lot of metaphors for that kind of thing, and sometimes not even metaphors. Sometimes it's like...
Yeah, pretty clear.
Yeah.
All in all, out of 10, what would you give it? This is something we've slowly started doing. I don't know where it started, but...
Yeah, I don't know. 6.5.
Yeah, probably strong 6. Mm-hmm. So pretty much the same. Not quite a 7, but
6.25.
Encroaching into that area maybe 6 3/4, 6.75. Cool. Yeah, right, that'll do it there. Check back with us next week.
We got more shit coming.
Do more things. We finally have. I'm just going to draw that back because I don't know if this one will be first or not.
Okay.
Will this be next? Which one are we going to put out first? This one or that one?
I'm leaving all of this in the video.
The AMA should be at the end.
Okay. You think so?
So we got that. Yeah, because that gives me the longest time to edit in all the fucking screenshots of the comments, which is kind of a pain in the ass.
Okay.
So,
we got things. Later.